Hey YouTube, welcome back to another video. Today I'm doing sort of my part 3 of my January update, which is extremely late. I think in another week's time I'll probably have to do my end of February update, so that's sort of how sort of far I'm behind in doing this. Anyway, so we'll make a start. I think most of the films here are probably going to be sort of classic, sort of black and white films. I don't know whether people are going to be interested in that or not, but that's sort of what I've been watching. So that's what I'll be showing you in part 3. I do have a couple of things that are a bit more recent, so I might show them off. First one here is a steelbook of the new Terminator movie, Terminator Genesis, or Genesux, as some people like to call it. This was really cheap, so I really couldn't, sort of pass it up, and it's not a bad looking, sort of embossed type of steelbook. I was going to actually give this movie a bit of a watch before I sort of made this video, but, well, so I should say a rewatch before I sort of showed it in this video, because I perhaps wanted to, so I could sort of give you my thoughts on it. I did sort of go and see it in the cinema, and I didn't think it was too bad. It was nothing terrible, I suppose, but it was nothing very, nothing amazing or, that exciting, really, I suppose. I guess in some ways a bit of a, pointless sequel. A movie that didn't really need to be made. I'm just reading on the back here, it says a quote from James Cameron, obviously the person that directed Terminator 1 and 2. It says, "You're going to love this movie." That's what it says here. And I suppose some people might say you got paid to say that. I don't know. Because the movie's not really that great, according to most people. Anyway, so yeah, I can't say too much about it, because I have seen it, but yeah, I probably should have give it a bit of a rewatch first. But anyway, moving on. So that's the steelbook. I've got that. A couple of sort of classic animation TV shows from my childhood, which I sort of found cheap. I've got sort of a disc 1 of the Voltron series. And I've also got, I think, part 2 there as well. Well, I don't know whether they're I don't know whether it's going to be the full series or not. They've both sort of got 2 discs in them, so I assume it's sort of like series 1 or series 2, or I don't know, something like that. I think I've watched probably 3 episodes of this so far, and it is perhaps a little bit dated, I suppose, a bit sort of slow, I suppose, but I'm enjoying it. I think it's it's quite sort of fun to revisit. Voltron, I was quite a fan when I was a kid. So that's disc 1, and then disc 2, which I haven't sort of started yet. Then also, I was going to show this first actually. I picked up a big box set of, I don't know whether it's the complete series or not, but it's a big box of the G.I. Joe TV series, which I used to watch a lot when I was a kid, and really did sort of love it. It's got, well, so I'm reading on the back here, and it's got sort of series 1, then you got series 2, then you got the G.I. Joe movie, and then you've got 2 other, I don't know whether they're movies or what they are exactly. But I was reading on the bottom here, it says, what it sort of says what it contains, and it says it contains 150 episodes plus 2 movies. But that doesn't sort of make sense though, really. I mean, because you've got, well, I suppose, I don't know, as I said before, series 1, series 2, then the movie. But what are these? Are these movies as well, or perhaps these are more, I don't know, TV shows? I don't know. But I haven't sort of had a chance to open this one up yet. But it's 25 discs, so there's plenty of watching there. 57 hours apparently, according to the bottom here. So that's that. I'm actually looking forward to diving into that and giving you a bit of a watch. Okay, then on to some of the classic films. Probably start with a couple that I think some people have at least heard of, not necessarily seen them, but they've heard about them. But there's quite a few here that I reckon a lot of people have never sort of heard of before. But anyway, so we'll start off with, I've had this one in my collection for quite a while, and I watched it a couple of times over the years. That's Citizen Kane, which is as most people know, probably was classed as probably the best film ever made at one time. I think that might have changed. I don't know what people class as probably the best film now, but this was certainly for quite a number of years supposedly the best film ever made, and a lot of people have sort of, sort of said, watched it and sort of said, nah, it's not really that great, sort of thing. But I think, I guess at the time when it sort of came out, and even though I think it might have been a bit of a flop, I think, when it first came out, but anyway, I think years after it came out, there's a lot of sort of great sort of film techniques to it, and a lot of sort of groundbreaking sort of elements to it, which I think did sort of inspire a lot of the films that came after it, and I think that's sort of why it was sort of classed as the best film ever made, sort of thing, because it was such a bit of a inspiration for a lot of other films that sort of came after it. I have sort of watched it a few times, and I do actually quite like it. I'm not too sure whether people sort of know the storyline to it, but it's essentially about sort of Charles Foster Kane here, and he's a rich sort of millionaire, and he sort of dies, and on his deathbed he sort of says the word rosebud, and then which is, a bit of an odd thing to say. And the rest of the film, which I think is just about I think it's like a reporter. I think he sort of wants to sort of find out, who or what was Rosebud. So it was very much sort of a mystery and sort of thing. So we sort of spend the rest of the film, talking to his friends and his family, and trying to work out, what Rosebud is. But yeah, I do actually think it's quite a good movie. I do quite like it, and probably one of those films you probably, one of the films you probably should see before you die, type thing. Yes, that's Citizen Kane. And then onto another film. Now, this film's probably in some ways sort of related to what I was sort of saying with Citizen Kane, talking about sort of old films that people watch nowadays, and people think they're not really that great, even though they're sort of classed as being classics. I finally got around to watching probably one of the most famous films, I guess, ever made. That's Gone with the Wind, which I think goes for about 4 hours. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I sort of put it off watching it for quite a while. I wasn't sure whether I could sort of sit down for 4 hours, but I did sort of manage to make it through the 4 hours or so. And it's sort of, as I was sort of saying, I didn't sort of like it quite that much. I was a bit sort of underwhelmed by it, to be honest. It's a film from 1939. That's quite an old film, and again, I guess very much similar to sort of Citizen Kane. It's a film that I think's a lot of other films that sort of came after it have obviously copied it and sort of drew inspiration from. And I've seen a lot of those films, so what sort of watching this sort of seems like a rather sort of, it's nothing I haven't sort of seen before, or it's a lot of the plot ideas or certain elements to it, stuff I've sort of seen before, and in other films, sort of thing. I don't know, it wasn't a very bad film. Wasn't really any sort of scenes that I thought were really sort of stand out for me. There was no sort of sort of scenes I go, that was a really great scene. That was quite well done, sort of thing. There's a lot of sort of great sort of visuals to it, though. A lot of some really great sort of cinematography in it, which I thought was quite well done. I also thought maybe that Clark Gable, he was a bit sort of miscast as well. I have sort of been watching a lot of his films lately, and he sort of plays the same sort of character, which is not really a problem. There's nothing wrong with sort of playing the same character in all your films, especially when you're sort of a likable sort of character as Clark Gable. I just sort of felt maybe the character here probably should have been a bit different, perhaps, to the Clark Gable sort of traditional character that he sort of plays. I think that would have made it, I don't know, in some ways perhaps a bit better film, I think. If they'd sort of got another actor to sort of play it. But I don't know, I guess there's nothing really wrong with the acting, I suppose, in it, or storyline to it, or anything like that. It was, I don't know, I just sort of felt it's like something that I'd sort of, seen before in sort of other films. So that's, I don't know, sometimes perhaps why I was perhaps a little bit, let down by it. Anyway, so that's Gone with the Wind. Next one here is Canada Tin Roof, which I think stars, I did read somewhere that someone reckoned that they were the two most beautiful actors in Hollywood at the time, which I suppose could be true. We've got Paul Newman and Elizabeth Taylor. I've seen a couple of Paul Newman's movies, and did actually quite like them. Got The Sting, which I thought was really great, and of course Cool Hand Luke, which is another film I do actually quite like a lot. I've seen a few of Elizabeth Taylor's films too, and I don't know, I wasn't necessarily too keen on her, I suppose, in what I've seen, but I do actually quite like her in this one. I mean, she's obviously very attractive, and but I think I perhaps I don't know, perhaps I liked her character a little bit more on this one than perhaps compared to some of the other films that I've sort of seen her in. The story of this one's probably a little bit sort of it's a bit hard to perhaps sort of explain in a few words. I guess I think it's sort of about Paul Newman's father, and he's sort of about to die. So they so I guess sort of the family sort of all comes together to sort of because he's obviously because the father's dying, sort of thing. So and there's we sort of find these sort of skeletons in the closet of this family, sort of thing, and sort of bring them together. They sort of start to talk about the past and certain things that have happened, which we sort of won't go into because it's a bit hard to sort of explain. I think this is sort of based on a sort of a play too by is it Tennessee Williams? Yeah. So it's a little bit sort of, in some ways it's a little bit sort of theatrical, I suppose, and perhaps it's a little bit sort of too long. But I think there's definitely some great performances, and I do actually quite like the storyline to it. And I mean, as I said, I mean, I do quite like Paul Newman, but in some ways he does remind me a lot of sort of Marlon Brando. They were sort of both actors were sort of around at the same time, and sort of had this very sort of theatrical way of acting, and I guess in some ways it's not necessarily sort of overacting, but I guess it's definitely with the case with Marlon Brando. It very sort of every line has to be every sort of line has to be sort of like a poetry sort of thing. It has to be sort of, I don't know, like they're reading some sort of great speech sort of thing, which I don't know can which it does get a little bit old, I think, after a while. Sort of every line has to be sort of this poetic sort of speech, type thing. But definitely a film that I do actually quite like a lot. Good. So that's one I probably would recommend. Okay, I want to sort of a 4-pack here of Turner Classic Movies. We've got sort of a Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall sort of 4 movies that they sort of did together. And I did sort of watch sort of all 4 of these movies, and I actually quite like them a lot, actually. They've got To Have and To Have Not, which I think is the very first movie that they sort of ever sort of starting together, and I think Lauren Bacall was only like 19 at the time. Then what else you've got here? Key Largo, which is very sort of similar, I suppose, a bit of a very similar to sort of Casablanca, very sort of similar sort of storyline to it, and but definitely really good. I actually quite liked that one. You got Dark Passage. It's probably a film that I think perhaps needs a sort of perhaps a whole video maybe dedicated to it, because it's quite an interesting film. It's sort of I don't know, I don't want to go into it. I suppose I'll be here all day talking about it. But definitely sort of a film that's not necessarily like your typical film, and it sort of does sort of end up being a bit different to the way it's sort you sort of think maybe the film's going to sort of go a certain way, but it sort of goes a bit different to what you're expecting. And it does have some quite interesting sort of elements to it, which I did sort of quite like. And then you got sort of The Big Sleep, which I think is sort of based on a Raymond Chandler sort of detective story. So that was quite good. It's definitely sort of a lot of twists and turns, and a bit of sort of film noir type style of movie, which was actually sort of redone. It was a bit of a remake, which I did sort of watch as well. Was the remake with Robert Mitchum, and I think James Stewart's in it as well. I think it's sort of one of the very last sort of films that he sort of did. This is probably not necessarily quite as good as the original one, which I guess most films aren't. But it's not too bad. I'm a bit of a fan of Robert Mitchum, and it was quite interesting to sort of watch the sort of the remake with sort of the original one in mind, sort of thing. So that's that one as well. But I definitely did quite like all 4 of these films. It was definitely a good watch, and these sort of editions are actually, reasonably cheap too when you consider you're getting sort of 4 movies all together, sort of thing. The only problem, I think, they're all sort of like stacker discs. They're not sort of, they don't sort of have this separate spots. They're all sort of just, the discs are all sort of piled on top of each other, which is, I guess, not ideal, I suppose. But I think if you look after your discs, it's probably, I guess, maybe not a huge deal. So that's that one. Okay, now onto some musicals now. I've become a bit obsessed with musicals recently, which is probably going to, I guess, maybe hurt my macho male image. But I have sort of been watching quite a lot of these classic sort of Hollywood musicals. Gravity was from 1933, which I did sort of watch the trailer for this, and I thought it was a really great trailer, and has this really great sort of well, there's like a song basically called "The Forgotten Man." It was all about sort of these guys that sort of about sort of the men that sort of came back from World War One, all these sort of sort of damaged sort of men that came home from the war, back to sort of normal life, and they weren't necessarily sort of treated very well because they were very sort of damaged, I suppose, and found it very hard to sort of fit back into normal society. So they were in some ways sort of outcasts, I suppose. And that the song I thought was just really good, sort of saying about all these men that were sort of pretty much the heroes at one time, and now they're all pretty much just outcasts living on the street, and no one really cares about them anymore, even though they're sort of in some ways, I guess, saved everyone and saved everyone's life, type thing. Anyway, but I did sort of watch the film, and the film's actually a lot different to that. That sort of trailer part was only sort of like one song at the end of the movie, and the rest of the movie is actually completely different, and it wasn't quite as sort of deep and meaningful as I thought it was going to be. The storyline itself is probably essentially just you sort of got this sort of dance show, and they've basically there's no sort of money to put on the next one, so they've got to sort of all rally together and try and find a way to sort of fund sort of the next production sort of thing, which is very much a similar sort of story. A lot of these sort of films also had sort of the same sort of storyline to them, and were all sort of made within a year or two of each other. So they sort of did sort of pump out a lot of the same movie again and again sort of thing. But I did actually quite like this one though, especially sort of the last dance note, which I did sort of talk about. So sort of Forgotten Men, which is it's a really great sort of visuals to it, and quite well done, I thought. So that's that one. So I did sort of watch that one and did quite like it a lot. So I did sort of buy a 4-pack with some more sort of musicals in it. You've got 42nd Street, which is probably one of the most sort of famous musicals of the time, sort of thing, which I think sort of did sort of kick off sort of the rest of these sort of films. I think I watched 3 of these. I haven't watched God Diggers in 1937 yet. But these are all quite good. I mean, I don't know. It's a bit difficult perhaps to sort of say sort of why I like these sort of movies so much. I don't know. There's some sort of nice sort of catchy songs, and some great sort of visuals to it, and very sort of visual type experience. And I suppose the women too are obviously very attractive too. They're not the sort of the modern women that are all sort of skinny and tanned. These are sort of, I guess you'd sort of say, real women with curves, and what's that saying? The thighs you could sort of crack walnuts with, type thing. So yeah, I don't know. I have been quite liking these, I suppose. They're a bit sort of silly and a bit but yeah, I don't know. I think they're just really sort of good watches. I've been sort of quite liking these ones. And you've got some quite sort of famous stars too. You've got like Ginger Rogers and Ruby Keeler too. She was they say she wasn't a particularly good singer or dancer, but she was a very sort of likeable sort of actress though. And she was married to Al Johnson. He was like the like they call him blackface. He was the guy that sort of the white guy that sort of painted himself in the black sort of face paint, and which is very sort of, I guess some people say it's very sort of racist. And you got Fred Astaire and few other ones too. Dick Powell, Joan Blondell. Yes. But anyway, yeah. So I've been, quite liking these. So that's that. Into another musical. This one here is Joan Crawford and Clark Gable. I'm a fan of Joan Crawford and have been watching quite a lot of Clark Gable's movies recently. Actually, this one did quite like a lot. Actually, Joan Crawford. I think a lot of people reckon she couldn't dance, but she's actually in real life she did actually sort of win a lot of dance competitions when she was younger, so she definitely could dance. I think in some ways the style of dancing that she does in the film, I think, is very very sort of strange, sort of it's like stamping, I suppose. Like it's dancing, but it's very sort of I don't know. I think it was a bit of sort of crazy at the time, and it doesn't look particularly very smooth sort of dancing. So I think that's sort of why people reckon that she couldn't dance. But it's just sort of the part of the style of dancing that that she was doing. Again, another sort of film that's just essentially the same storyline. A bunch of dancers again that are sort of out of work and got to try to rally, and they've got to try and sort of rally together to fund the next production sort of thing. But yeah, this one is actually quite good. So that's that one. This one here is a film that I think probably no one's ever sort of heard of, but it has sort of been mentioned. It's called Hell's Angels, which is sort of, if you ever watched the movie The Aviator, Leonardo DiCaprio, talk about the story of Howard Hughes. This is sort of there's a film that he was sort of making, in real life. The very sort of overblown, one of the most expensive films ever made, which is well, I wasn't say it wasn't I don't think it was a flop or anything, but it was just extremely overproduced, and Howard Hughes spent way too much money, and it was a bit of a disaster really. So this is actually the film that he was sort of making, which I think which was made in 1930. So it's definitely a very sort of bit of sort of dated sort of film. And it does sort of have a lot of, it's a really interesting watch, sort of. It's very it's almost a sort of film that I think sort of came just after sort of silent film, so there's definitely a bit of a sort of crossover there sort of thing. The story itself is just sort of about sort of three guys, I guess, and you've got sort of two brothers, and then you've got their friend, which was like a German. So he had to sort of go back to Germany and sort of fight against his friends, sort of thing, which is quite interesting. And you also got Jean Harlow too, which I think is her very sort of first film, and some sort of nice visuals to it, and nice sort of airplane sort of chases, and but it's a little bit sort of dated, I suppose, being a 1930s sort of film, and I did sort of notice that sort of there's a few sort of places where sort of the scene would sort of end, but the film would sort of keep running. Like the actors would sort of say their last line, and they'd sort of finish the scene, but yet the film would still run for about another 4 or 5 seconds. So you sort of have these sort of the actors sort of standing there, motionless, not saying anything, just waiting for this. I guess the director to sort of say cut, I suppose. I don't know whether it was something to do perhaps with the way they had to edit it. They had to sort of let the film sort of run a bit longer so they could sort of cut it. I don't know. I just sort of think interesting that sort of so there was nothing going on for 4 or 5 seconds. But yeah, I actually quite like it though. I thought it was quite interesting, and there's some nice sort of visuals to it. I thought sort of like some scenes were sort of in black and white, and others were sort of in this purpley blue type effect to it, which is quite interesting. Anyway, so that's that one. 2 more films to go. Another sort of Clark Gable, Jean Harlow movie with I think it's My Old Loy as well. My Wife versus Secretary, which is a bit of a sort of bit of a comedy, I suppose. But I actually quite like this one a lot though. It's essentially just sort of about Clark Gable and Jean Harlow. It was she's sort of his receptionist, and his secretary. And it's like it's a purely sort of platonic relationship. There's nothing sort of going on, and but one day I think she gets asked to his house to pick up some papers. I think something to do with work, and the wife's mother sort of sees Jean Harlow and suggests to the wife that maybe there might be something going on there. You should try and keep her away from your husband, sort of thing. And which she never, the idea never sort of crossed her head before, sort of thing. But now she's got this idea that maybe there might be something going on between these two. And I won't sort of spoil, but certain things happen, and she thinks, well, maybe there is something going on, sort of thing. But yeah, I do actually quite like the end. I thought the end was, quite well done, and really great performances all around, and definitely one I did actually quite like a lot. I thought this was, really sort of fun, really good dialogue, and really good. So I did quite like that one. And then finally, another film that probably no one's ever heard of. Again, another Clark Gable and Jean Harlow film with Wallace Berry. So you got Clark Gable here, sort of like a captain of like a luxury cruiser, and he's secretly sort of smuggling gold. None of his sort of passengers know anything about it, but I think Wallace Berry here sort of does sort of find out about it, and he wants to sort of try and double cross Clark Gable. They're sort of friends in the movie, but he's decided to sort of cross him and get the gold for himself, type thing. Probably not necessarily quite as good as Wife vs. Secretary, but yeah, it was a nice sort of fun sort of movie that I did sort of quite like. Yes, that's that one. Anyway, so that's my update. Definitely sort of films that probably a lot of people, perhaps a few films that no one's ever sort of heard of. But anyway, I hope you sort of enjoyed my video. Thanks for watching. And I guess I'll see you probably in a week's time when I do my end of February update. So bye.